Welcome back to TYT Sports and RotoWire. Another great clip, including Chris Liss and Ben Mankiewicz, prepping you for the NFL season, both fantasy-related, both coverage-related, I guess we can call it. But Jason Rubin here with you. We turn to Reddit. Reddit's NFL discussion threads are a great source for us, as we always like to go through them for some fun debate and some fun discussion. Let's start with the first card. I'm going to throw to each of you a specific question. So what is a common prediction for the season that you completely disagree with? So Cute Wolves says the Rams are going to finally get over the hump this season. Happens every offseason. 6-10 last season. Foles gets them to 8-8. Chris.
I certainly don't completely disagree with that. I think that's a fair prediction. I think it's a modest one. You're not saying they're going to win the Super Bowl. Just say 8-8. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think, I would say the over-under is probably 7.5, but 8-8 I've got no problem with.
Right. Yeah, I'll say yes. I like that coaching staff, and if Foles is healthy. There are a lot of young wide receiver weapons there, and wouldn't surprise me if they stepped up and scored some points. Yep. And the defense has a lot of playmakers there.
Right. We move forward. Another common prediction for the season that you completely disagree with. Let's see the second one. New Yorker in Georgia says that the Redskins will be a dumpster fire again. I'm a believer in their new GM. He has done it before, and I expect him to do it again. Then Snyder will become an idiot again. Fire him, and they will go back to being a dumpster fire. But I think they will at least be respectable for the next couple of years. Ben, the ex-Pigskins fan you are, why don't you field this question?
Well, I mean, they got serious with player personnel for a change, right? And they don't have clowns running it. They don't have Snyder involved. They don't have Bruce Allen involved. They don't have Vinny Serrato. I mean, it's a joke what this team has done. And the result is that we have a back-to-back drafts that have been graded pretty.
It's we again.
No, you're right. You're right. No. By the way, that you're just catching an old-time thing. No, they. Okay. They've had back-to-back drafts that have been graded highly. I don't see it this year at all. I mean, they have terrible play, evidenced by what we've seen in the preseason. Terrible play on both lines. So I think they're the worst team in football.
Yeah, I don't know if they'll be that bad, but I was sort of like.
I think they're in the mix for the worst team. They're the worst team in football.
They're not necessarily.
Yeah.
One thing I was kind of like RG3. I got him for $2 in this auction as my backup QB. I like the upside, and then I remembered he has no pocket presence. He gets destroyed, and those other guys who come in don't get destroyed like RG3 does because he stands there like a victim in a horror movie, right? And you're like, don't go in the closet. That's the stupidest place to go. But of course, they go right in there, and the guy just comes right in. And there's nowhere to go,
right?
And that's him. He's the victim. And I was like, oh yeah, that's right. That's why I don't like him because he gets hurt not by accident. He gets hurt because he holds the ball and he stands around. He has no feel, and so. I agree with you. I think they'll be bad. I don't think they're going to have a good year.
But I do agree that there's every possibility. What's that guy's name? Scott Monahan? Is that right? I'm getting his name wrong.
Who's the new GM they're running? I don't even know.
But here's what I do think. Dan Snyder will eventually be unable to restrain himself. The only way that team ever gets back to some position of respectability is if Dan Snyder does what George Steinbrenner did in essentially 1995, 93, and dies. No, that's nice.
Right, back in the 90s, yes, of course.
But if Steinbrenner goes, okay, I'll write the checks, Brian Cashman, Joe Torre,
right.
You guys are in charge.
Oh, he didn't. That wasn't George Steinbrenner's choice. He got banned from baseball for 2 years, and so all those prospects developed when he was away. Yeah. He would have gotten rid of Jeter. And those guys.
Well, he didn't come back and insist on whatever it is. When he at some point it occurred to him. Wait a minute, these guys know what they're doing.
It was working.
Right, that's working, right? Yeah. And Snyder needs to come to that decision or he's doomed to repeat failure after failure in Washington.
Understood. We move forward. This is an interesting one because Jimmy Graham moving to the Seattle Seahawks was one of the biggest blockbuster moves of the offseason. So a common prediction for the season that you completely disagree with, the FBP. Jimmy Graham isn't going to be a beast as the top receiving threat in Seattle's offense. Wilson to Graham is going to be a prolific a combination as almost any in the league.
I completely agree with this prediction that Jimmy Graham is not going to be a beast in this new situation. He's going to be doing some blocking. He's going to catch some balls. He's going to be okay, but forget it. I will not touch him in the top 30 picks. I think he's way closer to Travis Kelce, if not behind Travis Kelce, than he is to Gronk. I agree with this completely.
Is that based off of Drew Brees targeting him 130 times a year compared to Russell Wilson's probably 90-ish targets?
I think he'll get 112 targets maybe, but the Saints system and offense is just a better place to be. They throw the ball 650 times. The Seahawks throw it 450. That's a really big difference. And, they may get him the goal line. He may get 8-9 touchdowns, no problem. May get 850 yards. But I'm predicting decent numbers, but nothing close to the
What he's been
first
doing.
round pick that he was in New Orleans.
Will he outdo the production last year of Luke Wilson?
Yeah, he'll outdo the production of Luke Wilson with the 2 L's. Yeah.
Okay, so I agree. I'm with Chris because I think that just historically in the NFL, those big player changes, going from organization to organization, I don't know whether it takes time. First of all, there's all the things working against him in Seattle that were working for him in New Orleans, which Chris went over, and I don't need to repeat. But it doesn't work this way in the NFL. It's hard to get into it. Even if Seattle threw more, he wouldn't deliver exactly what you want. And if we hadn't seen the peculiarity of a play that couldn't get repeated if you tried to do it 500 times, and people thinking, Jimmy Graham would have caught that pass and Seattle would have won the Super Bowl. And it would have been he would have been a better target. You can't go through Jimmy Graham. It's either a touchdown or incomplete, probably, if Jimmy Graham's there. But that has caused this sort of sense that we're going to see a complete change and dominance there. And I agree with Chris. I think he'll be a good tight end.
All right, let's move forward. This one goes to the Dolphins, which, again, the Dolphins almost similar in that Rams situation, but the Dolphins always 8-8. Always 8-8. That Tannehill is going to carry the Dolphins to the playoffs. I don't know if it's Philbin or Tannehill that I don't like, but what I do know is that two of them together aren't winning, much less making any playoff games. That is from Street X Manifesto.
What I do know, you know that.
Don't piss off the Reddit audience, man. They are ruthless.
Don't care, not going to read it. I mean, you don't know in the NFL, and quarterbacks take some time to develop, and this would be the time that it would not totally surprise me if he stepped up to the point that it got them to enough wins to make the playoffs. I think that the Patriots are likely to be, especially if Brady's suspension isn't 4 games, which right now as we record this is. I think the Bills are going to be a very tough beat this year. It's a really good defense, and they'll run the ball very effectively. They obviously have significant quarterback problems. So I would say that the Dolphins are probably not going to make the playoffs because you're asking for the third-place team in that division to make the playoffs, and that's hard to do.
Will they do better than 8-8?
I think they're an 8-8 team. I think they're a 7-9, 8-8, 9-7 team, depending on luck.
Yeah, I think they could make the playoffs. Tannehill, I don't have a good vibe about him, but, and most quarterbacks are usually good right away these days. Like it used to be they took time, but you see Cam Newton and Matt Ryan and Joe Flacco and Andy Dalton and Andrew Luck. They're just good right away. Russell Wilson. There's no 3-year curve anymore. It used to be, right? But with him, it's maybe a little different because he was a wide receiver, so maybe he's a little slower to develop. They got him some weapons. Devontae Parker could be a big difference maker. Ndamukong Suh got added to the defense.
Yeah, that's right.
This team might be good. I don't think Joe Philbin's a very good coach.
And they already put huge pressure on the passer, even without Suh.
Yeah, they have Cameron Wake. I mean, this is kind of a talented team. I still feel 9-7-ish about him, but they could make the playoffs.
You just gave a great pump-up speech to all the Dolphins fans just to shut them down.
Also
just 9-7.
They could go to 10-6.
It's
It's
a
one
point.
bounce.
There was a great piece this week about how baseball play, how Mike Trout is not about to get better. Like Mike Trout is as good as he's good. When guys make the majors, they're usually as good as they are. Certainly within probably by their second year, the development happens prior to making the majors. And that has sort of been true with quarterbacks, but I'm not sure we have a big enough sample size that we're done with the idea that a guy could get better, although the examples you suggest do point out that although Russell Wilson has definitely gotten better.
Right.
Well, he was used more, but he's been pretty good since the day he set foot on the field.
Each time, the coaching knew how to use him and allowed him to develop.
Yeah.
Right. But so I'm just saying, a guy like Tannehill, regardless of the wide receiver thing, only augments the argument, but I could see a guy like that getting better. But I just get I get a vibe that guy's going to max out at being the 18th best quarterback.
Yeah.
Continuing with the common prediction for the season that you completely disagree with, Meekrot says the Colts will take the next step. I think this really revolves around, we know their offense is strong. We know Andrew Luck is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Is their defense going to haunt them moving to take that next step?
I think they very well could take the next step. I don't know if they will. I would probably say I would be more bullish than the average person on the Colts because I just think Luck is just destined for superstardom. I mean, he's already kind of there, but just to be a real superstar, you got to win a Super Bowl or two. And I think it's this is maybe the year that he could do it. And defense changes a lot year to year. It also helps the defense when your team's up a lot and they can just kind of pin their ears back and rush the passer. So I'm going to say the Colts should be one of the most heavily favored teams in the NFL to win the Super Bowl, and they very well might win it.
Yeah, I think they'll take the next step. I agree with Chris. I don't know whether they'll take the next step.
Yeah,
They're a great bet to win that division. They're a great bet to dominate that division and get themselves home field advantage. I don't think there's great value in them, in betting on them, as we did in another segment. They have one great defensive player in Vontae Davis, and and if he's healthy, and then they addressed it. They're aware of their shortcomings. They need to be an average defensive team to take the next step.
There's only 2 more steps.
That's right.
Win the AFC Championship.
Right.
So if the next step is win the AFC Championship, they very well could do that this year. And of course, the next step being win the Super Bowl. So there you have it.
Well, there could be. You could argue that there's a next step as get to the AFC Championship game and be competitive. Like maybe it's a great game that they lose 30-27 as opposed to getting run out of the gym.
Yeah.
Fair enough. So there you have it from Reddit's NFL discussion thread. We are really that excited for the NFL season. Ben Mankiewicz, Chris Lewis, and Jason Rubin here to give you some more news and everything regarding it. Make sure to check out the other clips. We've done a few with Chris and Ben on the NFL, on fantasy football. They're all in the links in the description below, in the annotations. They're really all around your screen. Chris is on RotoWire. Ben is on Twitter. And TYT Sports is on YouTube. Make sure to comment in the comment section below, and don't forget to subscribe.